Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. It is January 28th. The East-West Shrine Bowl wrapped up last night. We'll give you some updates on that throughout this show. We've also got Senior Bowl week occurring right now. You've got the practices, which are really more important than the games themselves. We're gathering all kinds of information there. If you're following us over at X or on X at Packers_access, you're getting all those updates, all the articles we're writing in the Patreon group as well, putting together scouting profiles and so on and so forth. So it's an exciting time here. What I want to do on today's show is kind of reset a little bit. We're going to talk about the contract restructures that could be potentially coming up here mid-February, okay? I always say the date you want to start looking for this stuff is like February 10th through the February 20th, something like that, where the Packers could potentially restructure contracts to free up cap space. They may go ahead and make cuts, things like that. We'll kind of keep our eye on that. We'll talk about some of the contracts that should be restructured or could be restructured, I should say, to save cap. We'll also talk about the potential free agents, right? We talked about this once before. A couple of weeks ago, we had this whole coaching hire cycle go through. We're going to revisit that, just give you guys a quick refresher. Here are the Packers that are set to hit free agency and who we would like to have back. We'll have a quick conversation there. We will talk about the Shrine Bowl, and there were 8 players, according to Chad Reuter over on NFL.com, that really improved their stock here this NFL draft season. We'll hit on that. And then we'll talk about the big topic of the day, not necessarily with the Packers, but everybody having a conversation about Bill Belichick getting snubbed from the Hall of Fame. What a wild time we live in. I put a poll question out because you guys know how I operate here. I was a little concerned, like, hold up a minute. Am I in the minority thinking that this is absolutely crazy that Bill got snubbed? I've seen a couple people comment on it here or there. And, I was watching Jen, Gabe, and Chewy this morning, and there were several people in the comments that were like, supporting it, that he didn't get in. I'm going, what? It must be me. So poll question up in YouTube. You guys go ahead, get your votes in. We've also got the poll question up on X as well. We'll end the show with that and just have a quick little conversation about it. We'll have more scouting reports coming up, scouting deep dives, as we got Logan Jones, Pat Coogan, Connor Liu, Keelan Rutledge, just to name a few that we're going to dive into here in the near future as well. Before we get into everything, if you would, do that YouTube stuff for me. Hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams. You guys have been crushing it, by the way. The numbers are through the roof, over 300,000 views a month. We are now over 40,000 hours of watch time per month. And, we picked up over 600 subs in the last 28 days as well. So it's all because you guys and gals are taking the time to hit like and subbing to the channel themselves, sharing it, all that good stuff, and making sure that you don't miss out on anything we do here in terms of live stream. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Bunch of people in here. We got Nick McSwain in the house. We got Jen in here, Jen Wright. We got Chris in. Let's see who else we got rolling in here. All kinds of folks chatting it up. We got the Freedom House in the house. We got Joseph in here. Good to see you, Joseph. Cannonball John. We got Kyle Hart in here. Belichick issue is a recency bias problem. Hey, no argument there for sure. Paige and Dr. Crutch. We got Chad Inc. Everybody following in. Andy Dubs. Appreciate y'all. William Jenkins. Everybody. Thank y'all for making us part of your morning. Let's get into it. Let's start with roster decisions, okay? And listen, we put this article up a little while back over on our Patreon group, and all we're going to focus on here, guys, is going to be a real quick segment. We're just going to kind of give everybody a quick refresher, and I want to know, everybody in the comments, so let me know how you feel about some of these players that you might potentially cut or restructure their contract. And we did update it since, obviously, Trayvon Diggs has been cut by the Packers to free up $15 million. However, this is the list of highest cap hits of 2026. All right. Again, Trayvon Diggs was on this list because it was just a $15 million salary. Obviously, you're not going to carry that $15 million. You let him test the market. Hopefully, you can get him back for half that, maybe around $10 million, if the Packers were impressed with the minimal time they had in terms of having him there at practice. So here is the list, the highest cap hits for the Green Bay Packers in 2026. Jordan Love, $36.1 million. Rashawn Gary, $28 million. Aaron Banks, $24.7 million. Elgton Jenkins, $24.3 million. Micah Parsons, $19.2 million. Xavier McKinney, $19 million. Josh Jacobs, $14.5 million. Devontae Wyatt, $12.9 million, fully guaranteed with the fifth-year option. It's wild that he's 28 years old. He may not be the future three-tech, guys. They may not. They may have just looked this like a patch it deal and go find the future this year. It could be the case. Nate Hobbs, $12.8 million. Zach Tom, $12 million. Keyshawn Nixon, $7.1 million, which, by the way, Keyshawn Nixon got – I don't mean to laugh. He got voted the Pro Bowl, so congratulations to Keyshawn Nixon for making the Pro Bowl. I did hear, though, he did finish the year with the most pass breakups of any cornerback in the league. That's a positive, right? If we're trying to keep things positive on this morning's show. So – and then you got Christian Watson, $6.9 million in that kind of bridge deal they did there. LVN, $5.5 million for Lucas Van Ness. Brandon McManus, $5.2 million. Isaiah McDuffie, $4.9 million. And then Matthew Golden with his rookie contract, $3.9 million. So let's talk about who to restructure. William Jenkins starts it off, says, Gary needs a restructure and go. Completely agree, William. Completely agree. And you guys know I'm a big Gary fan. I think he's gotten a lot of hate over the last few years. That was unwarranted. He was your best pass rusher before Micah got here. After Micah went down, he was still your best pass rusher. No matter if you're looking at quarterback pressure percentage or sacks, he led the team right outside of Micah. But the number has officially gotten to the point where you've got to make a move here, right? And let's just start there because we know Jordan Love's going to be on this team, right? Obviously, the dead cap attached to Jordan Love is $98.4 million. You're not moving on from Jordan for at least 2 years if it ever gets to that point. I don't think we should move on from him. I think he's your franchise quarterback. I want to be very clear about that. But Rashawn Gary, $28 million cap hit. His dead cap attached is $17 million. It is worth noting, though, he's under contract for a couple more years. So even though we're showing if you cut him outright this year, pre-June 1, it's $11 million in cap savings, or a little less than that, I believe. Some people are reporting. If you go post-June 1 cut, it's $18 million. Okay, now what you're doing is you're kind of choosing to spread out that dead cap hit over this year, 2026 and 2027. If you want to wipe it completely off the books, you just cut them outright, right? Now, what would a restructure need to look like? And I think everybody's probably got their own opinion when it comes to Rashawn Gary and the restructure. What would it be worth? What would you be willing to pay against the cap for Rashawn Gary to be on this roster? Your answer may be cut him. I don't want him on the roster. I completely understand. I get it. I want him on the roster. I want all these guys on the roster at the right price, right? So with Gary, the $28 million cap hit, if you can get him to take a pay cut and get that number down to, say, $15 million, I'd be okay with it. Now, that's a big difference, right, between $28 million. So you're talking about shaving off roughly $13 million off the cap. Now, you can do that in a way where you guarantee a little bit more money for him, but the goal should be to try to get that down to around the 15 mark. If you could shave $13 million off the cap and keep him on the roster as opposed to cutting him outright and only freeing up $11 million, or going post-June 1 cut for $19.5 million in cap space, I'm all about it. Now, could you sell me on an $18 million cap hit? You could. $20 million, you probably could, to be honest with you. But for me, 15 is kind of that number that I'm settling in on. I want to know what everybody thinks in the comments. Let me know what you think there. I'll go back and read them later and kind of see where everybody's at. But that's what's on the line with Gary. Again, $11 million in savings this year, or post-June 1 cut, you could free up $19.5 million this year. I think it's safe to say it's not a crazy thought that Gary might have played his last snap as a Packer. He's also 29 years old. You know, we've seen the videos that he doesn't look like he's got the burst he used to have. Obviously, he had the ACL a few years ago. I don't think he's been the same since that. So it's just he's still such a good run defender that I wouldn't mind to have him to stay on the roster personally for the right price, of course. So next on the list, Aaron Banks. This is an interesting one, right? Aaron Banks, 29 years old, $24.7 million cap hit. The dead cap attached is 20.2. So essentially what you're talking about is freeing up $4 million in savings with a pre-June cut, okay? Now, post-June cut, $18 million. Whew. Don't want him on the team. I mean, I've seen enough. It would take a huge pay cut to justify bringing Aaron Banks back. Now, am I saying the Packers going to do that? No. I don't know what they're going to do, but I am not going to be surprised if he's back on the roster again. I hope Goody just cuts bait, cuts his losses, Post-June 1 cut. Keep in mind, you got to carry that cap penalty until June if you do that, so you don't get that cap space immediately. That's the other downside to just going post-June on all of these cuts, right? Now, if you can restructure with him and bring that number down, what number would we want him back at? Boy, that's a low number. It's to me, I put him right there with Elgton Jenkins. 10 million. 10 million against the cap. If you can get the cap allocation down to 10 million, I'd be okay with bringing Aaron Banks back. Same thing with Elgton Jenkins. You see right below him at 24.3 million. 24.3 million with Elgton Jenkins is it's just last year of his contract. So essentially what you got there is 24.8 million is his cap hit, or 24.3 is what it's settling in at. I apologize. Just call it 24 million. If you cut Elgton Jenkins, you free up 20 million immediately. Elgton Jenkins is gone, or it's going to be a huge, huge restructure for him. So here's the problem. We've been talking about you can't continue to go out there with the youngest roster in the league. You can't do that every year, right? Something's got to change. Well, if you cut both of these guys, you're probably going to have the youngest roster in the league. You're talking about cutting a 31-year-old and a 29-year-old, right? So there's give and take there. If I had to choose between the two, I would restructure Aaron Banks, cut Elgton outright, let him test the market, try to get him back at 10 million. That's what I would do. I'd love to have them both back at the right price. But if you lose both of them, then we can't complain about the penalties again next year. We can't complain about the blown blocking assignments again next year, right? The offensive line has to be re-bolstered, okay? Now, if you're guaranteeing me that Tyler Linderbaum is going to be on the market, that the Ravens are not going to re-sign him, he will be a free agent, and Goody will go after him, sign me up. If you can guarantee me that Goody will be willing to outbid everyone else to get Tyler Linderbaum at center, and you can guarantee me he will be available on the market, I would be okay with cutting bait with both of them, because now what you've got there essentially is you've got an all-pro caliber center in Tyler Linderbaum stepping into your starting center role, and now you just need to fill in the left guard spot, right? And you could do that through the draft. You could do that through free agency. To me, that's the perfect scenario. The perfect move here, guys, is literally move on from both of those guys and go get Tyler Linderbaum as your starting center. Now, there's a couple of other free agents out there that would probably be of equal value in terms of on-the-field play. We talked about that. You can find those videos down. If you scroll down the channel under the videos tab, you'll see some kind of free agency title there where we've talked about some of those top free agents. You could go get one for 6 or 7 million that would play equally according to PFF and their efficiency grades and all that stuff, and really what you see on tape. The point is, you don't have to pay $24.8 million against the cap, $24.3 million against the cap for the level of play you got from Aaron Banks and Elgton Jenkins. It's just a reality of the situation. You got Elgton now coming back from an injury. Aaron Banks was banged up early last year as well. So I would move on from both of them, go get Tyler Linderbaum, go get another free agent guy. So what you could essentially do, if Tyler Linderbaum number does fall at $17 million, like it's being reported according to Spot Track fair market value, if that's the case, then you would cut up, you would free basically Aaron Banks post-June, you would free up $18 million. Elgton, you'd free up $20 million right now. So you're $3 million in the good with Tyler Linderbaum as your starting center now. Actually, you'd be a little less than that because that first year of the contract's always a little lower. Tyler Linderbaum's number would probably be around $15 million if the AAV of the market value is accurate at $17 million. So you're coming out $3 million in the good there, and then on down the road, you're freeing up $18 million beyond June. And then you could go into free agency and probably get one for less than $10 million that would play as equally, good as Aaron Banks. Then you've improved both positions, right, in my opinion, and you've lowered the cap hit for both of them. To me, that's the move. And then you take your swings in free agency. It may be a Keelan Rutledge. It may be an interior guy like a Jake Slaughter, a Connor Lew, a Logan Jones, a Pat Coogan, somebody like that, right? But you just can't go out there and do the same thing and expect a different result this year, right? So that's kind of how I'm seeing the offensive line there. Now, next on the list is Micah Parsons at 19.2. Obviously, the $113 million dead cap going to keep you. You want to hold on to Mike. I believe we all agree. One that keeps getting tossed around, two of them actually, Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. People are like, Josh Jacobs played his last down for the Green Bay Packers. I'm going, are we really wanting to move on from Josh Jacobs? You guys hit me up in the comments. Am I wrong there? Like, I'm seeing several people. It's mainly radio hosts, and maybe they're trying to get a little bit of interaction. I don't know, but in no world do I not want to bring Josh Jacobs back on the Green Bay Packers. You might restructure the deal, $14.5 million against the cap, 6.2 dead cap. If you go post June 1, obviously you're going to free up a lot more than that. But I want Josh Jacobs on this roster, man. Xavier McKinney is like without question. Why would you not want to bring X back? I don't know. It's wild that even got brought up. But Xavier McKinney, $19 million against the cap, 11.5 dead cap. Obviously, post June will free up even more than that. So, really, really interesting to kind of see what the Packers are going to do in terms of this roster restructure here, or the contract restructures here with the players on the roster. Nate Hobbs, I think you bring him back. I mean, you can go post June 1 cut and free up a little bit more, but it's 12.8 against the cap. Dead cap's 12 million. He was banged up. When he was on the field, I didn't think he was bad. Maybe you guys disagree. But to me, I kind of look at him as like the floor. Him and Keyshawn are the floor. If you decide to hold on to Keyshawn, I'm not opposed to holding on to Keyshawn. I'm just opposed to just slam dunk. These are going to be your starting corners, right? You got to go out there and try to get somebody. And if you make some moves here, obviously you'll have enough cap space to go out and potentially grab a free agent corner, right? Although that's where Goody struggled, I mean, Nate Hobbs was his hand-picked favorite in free agency last year to kind of help bolster or fix the cornerback room. And at least right now it feels like he swung and missed, right? So got to do something a little bit different there. So like I said, that's just a quick look at your contract restructures and how you can free up some cap space going into this offseason. If you guys are watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, how do you feel about those restructures? How do you feel about what we said in offensive line, Aaron Banks, Elgton Jenkins? Would you guys like to see it unfold that way? Would you like to see something a little bit different? We want to hear from you in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified anytime we go live here in the future. So let's move on now to the Packers' current free agent list. All right. Now, again, we've got some Packers that are going to be hitting free agency here. And I want to know how everyone feels about these free agents as well. All right. Here's what we got. And again, you guys can find this article over in Patreon. We threw this up the other day. Current Packers set to be free agents. Who should we re-sign? So now let's approach it from this perspective. Here are the current Packers that are set to hit free agency. And again, we're kind of resetting. We did this a couple weeks ago. We're getting everybody ready because mid-February, we're talking about roughly 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about that window when the restructures typically happen. I want to say that Aaron Jones's restructure in 2023 or 2022, whenever it was, I think it was 2023. Yeah, 2023 happened on February 15th. So I kind of look at that as the time frame there. All right. So now, in terms of re-signing these free agents, now obviously you're going to have until free agency opens to get a deal done, right? So that's why we talked about the contract restructures first. That's coming down the pike first. Then you'll have the combine. Then you'll have the free agent re-signings, right? We're kind of laying everything out for you in chronological order, if you will, for the offseason. So Rasheed Walker, 25 years old. He'll be 26 soon. Unrestricted free agent, right? Left tackle. His market value, $20.3 million. Would you be willing to pay Rasheed Walker $20.3 million average annual value? The answer is no from me. What number would I attach? I would do 10. I think he's worth 10. He's a good pass blocker. He's not a great run blocker. You don't want to overpay for good. You're willing to overpay for great. Don't overpay for good. We will, if we can get him under market value, I'd be okay with bringing him back. If not, you got to move on. Here's the problem. He's 26 years old, so you're getting younger once again. So if you don't bring Sheed back, again, we got to make sure we bolster the offensive line. Now, at left tackle, Jordan Morgan, in my opinion, is going to be a better left tackle than Rasheed Walker based off what I've seen playing the tackle position. PFF agrees. Watching the tape, he looks so much more comfortable at left tackle. I think he is the left tackle of the future. I think that was their plan all along. You gather a comp pick for Rasheed Walker. Unfortunately, he was arrested for the gun charges there in New York. That may hurt his stock as well. So that might mean less of a comp pick, if you will, right? So if you got Jordan Morgan playing left tackle, and again, when you look at him playing guard, he had some good games. He had a lot of bad games. When they played him at tackle, I think it was over 4 games. He graded out in the 70s, according to PFF. His efficiency went through the roof. He looks more comfortable there. To me, he's cut from the same cloth as Rasheed Walker. He's a much better pass blocker than run blocker, but I think you're going to get someone who settles into that. He's obviously still ascending. So I think you're going to look up this year and next year and go, wow, that was a big improvement over Rasheed Walker. Now, will he be great to warrant a contract extension? Time will tell. Right now, haven't seen enough, right? We've seen them try to play him at right guard, left guard. They put him at right tackle. They've all over the joint, right? Brian Balaga was talking about that the other day. And, I try to remove my biased opinion and listen to former players, listen to former coaches, listen to former GMs. And Bulaga was like, he has not gotten a fair shake. Like this dude, they've tried to move him all over the joint, right? And that's why I think there should be a change at offensive line coach and all that. So if you go with Jordan Morgan at left tackle, you can just move on from Rasheed Walker. I think it's safe to say that's probably the best way to approach it right now. Now, listen, if you have a solid tackle fall to you in the draft, like Parker from Duke is one of my favorite prospects. And again, we'll definitely do a profile on him as we get a little later in the draft cycle. I'm gonna see if I can find him real quick to tell you where he's at. And there's several different tackles that kind of grab your attention. Like one out of Iowa, I don't think he'll be available for us, but like Jennings Dunker, he comes to mind. Monroe Frilling out of Georgia, he probably won't be available according to some of the consensus stuff. But the one that does, kind of pop up, like you start to get in that range of like Blake Miller out of Clemson. And then, of course, if I could find him, because I had a decent grade on him. Parker. Here we go. Brian Parker out of Duke. We've got him in the 65 spot. Okay, his grade is 57.8, but he's sitting at 65. The consensus big board has him at 80. The PFF big board has him at 102. If you get into the second round and he's sitting there, that's one of those picks I'd be okay with. Now, why do I mention that? He may come in, compete at left tackle, and they go, he's your left tackle of the future. Okay, Jordan Morgan is just going to be a backup, or maybe kick him to left guard. And unfortunately for Morgan, that will not have been a fair shake, like Brian said, like Bulaga said. But at the same time, it's all about getting the best product on the field. So I'm not ruling out that they wouldn't draft a left tackle in the second or third round. I'm just saying you don't have to reach for that, right? So just stick to the board. It may end up being a 3-tech, right? That looks great at that spot. So, all right. Next on the list, Kingsley Enagbare. This one's interesting. I'm kind of torn. I want to know what everybody thinks in the chat on Kingsley Enagbare. Yes or no to Kingsley Enagbare at $6 million? It's saying his market value is $6 million. Now, will he get more? Possibly, right? He put some decent tape, although I think it has been kind of over-exaggerated a little bit how well he played. I think he's been good, maybe above average to good. He's definitely not been very good, in my opinion. So I'd say above average to good. Would you guys be willing to pay $6 million to Kingsley? Say yes or no to Kingsley Enagbare. Okay, yes or no. Coach Lynn said yes, please. Right? I feel like that's money well spent. So if there is a player you want to try to bring back, now it's a crowded edge room. However, if you move on from Gary and you free that money up, you keep Enagbare, which I know there's some people that believe that Enagbare's played better football than Rashawn Gary even last year. That's not the case. Like quarterback pressure percentage, Gary had a higher quarterback pressure percentage. Run stop ratio, Gary had a higher run stop ratio. Sacks, Gary had more sacks. And I know he played more, so you got to kind of go sacks by snap type thing. Maybe Enagbare has him in that regard. But again, if you move on from Gary, I definitely want Enagbare back. If you restructure Gary, you probably let Enagbare walk. So Coach Lynn says yes on JJ. Joseph says yes for JJ Enagbare as well. Coach Lynn points out he is ascending. Completely agree. And Kyle Hart in the chat says JJ's still on the rise. That's a good point, Kyle. Dude seems to be getting better every single year, right? Jen Wright says yes on JJ. Soder says no on JJ. Okay. And just to look at the age here, Soder, he's going to be 26 years old. So it's not like one of those that, hey, if you move on, oh, no, we got significantly younger, right? It's kind of that middle of the road type thing. So that's our first no on JJ. Freedom House says yes. You got to be kidding me at that price. Yes, on Kingsley. And that's the big question, right? Is will it get up to 10 million? What's the number that you would say no to? I'm okay with 6. You get around 8. I'm going, no. I feel like we could do a little better. You know what I mean? So let's see here. Wiz Wade, if I'm saying that right. Yes, for JJ. And then Jen Wright says JJ can play more downs. Yeah, that's a good point, right, Jim? Maybe he gets in the groove as he gets more snaps when they move on from Gary as well. Could be the case. So Andy Dubb said he's a good anchor, but not 10. Okay, got it. Paging Dr. Crutch, yes, at that price, yes. So I think everybody agrees pretty much, maybe just other than one or two, right? Now here's Soder. Soder was one that said no, right? Soder said no. Here's his reason. I want Sorrell to get more snaps. Can't argue with that. Baron Sorrell, when I turn on the tape with J.J. Enagbare and Baron Sorrell, I feel like Enagbare is a little bit better than Sorrell, but that was Sorrell's first year, right? Where J.J. Enagbare was his rookie year and where Baron Sorrell was his rookie year is like, if you were to compare just rookie year, I feel like Sorrell is significantly better, me personally, right? And you guys know, if you were following the show back when J.J. Enagbare was drafted, it was my first draft coverage I did for PackerNet. Me and Ryan did a live stream. I was big on him. I was saying the Packers should have drafted him for 2 straight rounds. Like, he was the highest guy on my board the whole time. So with all that being said, for the right price, yes, bring him back. But I love what Soder says there, because, again, you're talking about progress stoppers. If you bring back J.J. Enagbare, it means less snaps for Baron Sorrell, less snaps for Colin Oliver, right? Or less snaps for Enagbare, who might be making $6 to $8 million per, right? So I think, yeah, looking at the chat now, everybody's kind of agreeing, right? Yeah, everybody's saying they agree with that. So Kyle says, I agree, $8 million is a tad rich. Rather give Sorrell more snaps in that scenario, right? You got Jen Wright says, I agree with that. So good morning, Mike. Appreciate you swinging through, buddy. Andy Dub says, not for $10 million, I'm in. Okay, got it. Joseph says more snaps for Sorrell. So if you had to choose, right? So great point there, Solder. Great point. So there's Enagbare. Next, Romeo Doubs. They're showing the market value at $12 million. I've heard some people say $15 million. I've heard others say he may get close to $20 million. And then I've heard some say he's not worth $10 million. I keep falling on $10 million with most of these numbers. If you notice, if you can get Romeo Doubs back at $10 million average annual value, that means the first year cap hit's going to be about $8 million. If you can get him on a 3-year deal, right? Guarantee a little bit more money, a 3-year deal that you can get out of after 2 years, then what will happen is when you extend Christian Watson to his big contract, you'll be able to manipulate everything to where you'll be able to move on from Romeo Doubs, right? You can do a 3 that's really a 1, or you can do a 3 that's really a 2 and make that cap work within the modeling of the wide receiver room. You got to be thinking about Jaden Reed as well. So really the question becomes, which receiver would you rather have moving forward, Romeo Doubs or Jaden Reed? For me, it's Jaden Reed, because Romeo plays, he doesn't play F. He doesn't play slot, that moving slot position for Matt LaFleur's offense. So I would rather see Matthew Golden. This is kind of like the Enagbare talk, right? We want Enagbare back, right? We think he's a good football player, at least above average football player. But would you want him back at the expense of Baron Sorrell getting minimal snaps? Probably not, right? Same thing with Romeo Doubs. If we could get him back at $8 million, that's great, right? Or $10 million, that's great. But if you do that at the expense of Matthew Golden getting less snaps, me no likey that. That's why it feels like Romeo Doubs is probably you're probably on your way out, unfortunately. And I think Dobby's been a good Packer, man. For a 5th round pick, my guy, I think he was 5th, right? 5th or 6th round pick. My goodness, that's great value by Brian Gutekunst there. So really, those are the 3 that you're looking at. Those are the 3 big names: Rasheed Walker, Kingsley Enagbare, Romeo Doubs. Outside of that, you got Zane Anderson, Nick Neiman, Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan's an interesting one at $6.5 million. If you could get him for $6.5 million, I'd be okay with bringing him back. Your roster stays a little more veteran. You got a guy with backup center experience. Now, will his number jump? I've seen some people say he'll crack the 10 million mark. I don't know about that. Based off what we've seen on tape, he's a good run blocker. I think it's safe to say he's a bad pass blocker. At least maybe this is a better way of putting it. He's a good run, above average to good run blocker. He's a below average to bad pass blocker, right? So you know what you got there, but you got that experience at center. Now you've got Jacob Monk behind him. He graded out well, albeit just 40 or 50 snaps, whatever it is, right? So I'm okay with bringing Ryan back, because if you get him at $6.5 million, I mean, you're talking about the first year cap hit being somewhere between $3 and $5 million. I think it's worth it to have a guy who probably going to potentially, that's another guy that might play left guard for you, right? If you find yourself in a pinch, if you do move on from Aaron Banks and Elgton Jenkins. So going to be really interesting to see how everything unfolds with these future free agents for sure. So if you guys are watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the future free agents that we just talked about? Let me know if you want them back. Again, those names are Rasheed Walker, Enagbare, Romeo Doubs, Sean Ryan. Let's leave it at that, okay? Enagbare, Rasheed Walker, Romeo Doubs, and Sean Ryan. Let me know in the comments, do you want them back or not? Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams like this one. All right, let's move along, guys, and talk now a little draft prospects. Y'all good with that? Everybody all right? But talk a little NFL draft? Because we're, again, just to kind of recap, what we're doing here is we are contract restructures February 15th. We're going to keep an eye out for that, right? Re-signing Packer future free agents here, that's going to happen probably early to mid-March as you approach the free agency deadline, okay? And then, of course, at the end of February, let me rewind, you're going to have the combine coverage. So we'll be updating our draft board with that. And everybody reaching out in the DMs about the draft board, thank you all so much for the kind words. It's a blast building that. Emilio helping make sure you get the link in there. We've been throwing information in like crazy. And we'll explain what we added here with the Shrine Bowl and what we're going to do the same thing with the Senior Bowl as well. But you'll have the combine at the end of February, and then the draft coverage will ramp up into free agency. And then bang, when April gets here, it's going to be the top 30 visits. And every time we have a top 30 visit, we will do an extreme deep dive into that prospect's background, exactly what the Packers are looking at there in terms of a prospect. Joseph in the chat says, mock, LOL. We'll do another one soon. We may do one this afternoon. I'm going to see if I can get the guys together and we can do a mock draft together, because that video did really, really well here on YouTube. And I think people really enjoy that if you do it in the right manner, if it's not long and drawn out, right? We were able to do in 17 minutes a 4-round mock draft, which was actually 3 picks for the Packers. If we could do that again, I think that's kind of the format to use. So with that being said, again, I see we got somebody here, Pac-Man over on Rumble, came in and said he's called Bill Belichick for a reason. So evidently he's seen the poll question. Everybody get your votes in, okay? We're going to talk about that here shortly, where we're going to dive into the Bill Belichick saga that is. And I'm really interested to see what everybody votes on that. So with that being said, let's jump into it real quick with the Shrine Bowl information and the draft. So you had Shrine Bowl practice all week, right? And then, of course, you had the game last night. Lo and behold, we had a Wisconsin boy show up and show out in Riger. If I'm saying, is it Rieger or Riger? You guys help me with the chat. He wasn't high on our board. I'll show you. He's still not extremely high on our board, but it's important to know who stood out in these All-Star games, because not that I care that much, but it's obvious that GMs and scouts, they care a lot about that. How do they rise to the occasion or don't rise to the occasion, right? With the lights on and all the scouts in house, there's something to be said for that, for sure. So everybody excited about him being a Wisconsin guy, obviously. So here we go. This was according to Chad Reuter over on NFL.com. All right. And here is what he had to say in terms of the players that stood out. We have 8 players. All right. 8 standouts on this list. First one is Shad Banks, linebacker out of UTSA. All right. His draft status, obviously, he's declared he's a senior. Performance, Banks was a special team standout early, recording stops on the first 2 kickoffs. Defensively, he showed elite lateral movement, slipping blocks to swallow ball carriers at the line and breaking up a key pass in the end zone. His injury history, Banks missed 2 games during the 2025 season due to an undisclosed minor injury, though he returned to finish the year at full strength. So obviously, seems like he's fairly healthy. He shined yesterday. Now, where did Shad Banks fall on our draft board? I'm going to explain how this works, okay, for those of you who are new to the draft board. On the far left, and I know it's hard for you guys to read this. Again, you can get closer to your screen, or you can find this over on patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access, where we've got our draft board for all of you guys and gals to check it out. So essentially what you've got, he's ranked 443rd, okay? You're going, how many prospects are on this board? We have 449 on the board, so he's toward the bottom. However, he flashed, so he gets the 5-point bonus. You'll notice this -5 right here. Low number wins on this board, all right? The consensus big board had him at 750. He was 395th graded linebacker according to PFF, and he was 523rd in the 2023 season, okay? So those numbers shake out with the 5-point bonus. His score is a 551. So am I interested in him? No, but we got to mention all these players that flashed, all 8 of these players, according to Chad Reuter, that really flashed. Next on the list, Dean Connors, running back out of Houston, okay? He was a senior as well. With his performance, he showed a versatile skill set with a great mix of power and quickness. He was effective as a pass catcher out of the backfield and scored the West's first touchdown with a sharp cutback move. Injury history, no significant injuries reported during his collegiate career. So you're talking about a guy who's healthy, right? So And I see the super chat there, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. We'll hit it at the end of this segment here, man. Thank you so much. So he's coming in at the 293 spot. There's a one spot placeholder there. If you're wondering why it says 294 and I'm saying 293. So Dean Connors, 293 out of Houston, running back, obviously. In 2023, he was the 107th graded running back. 24, he dropped to 288. 25, he jumped back up to 158. He was 257 on the PFF big board. He was 370 on the consensus big board. You see the 5-point bonus, giving him a score of 231. So he's going to fall in here at the 293 spot. Again, running back Dean Connors out of Houston. Next, you got Garrett DeJorio, if I'm saying that correctly, offensive tackle out of UCLA. Another senior. Performance. A, quote, mauler in the run game. DeJorio solidified the right side of the line. While he may move to guard in the NFL due to his 32 3/4 inch arm length, his movement skills when pulling across a formation impressed scouts. Injury history: suffered a leg injury / muscle spasms during a game against Nebraska in November 25 that caused him to miss time, but he was able to return for the season finale. So no huge injury issues there, right? He falls in the 305th spot on our PTA big board. We've got him listed as a guard because of the arm length. That may change by the time we get to the draft and through the draft process. 318th in 2023 at his position, 117th in 2024, 130th in 25. PFF big board had him at 314. The consensus big board had him at 419. We've got him with a score of 240 after the 5-point bonus from the East-West Shrine game that he excelled at. So again, they've got him anywhere from 314 to 419. We're saying he's worthy of the 240th pick, although he's sitting in the 305th spot. That makes sense. So keep an eye on Garrett DeJorio if he ends up going to the combine and see how he measures out. Next, we got an Iowa kid. I know we got a lot of Iowa fans that watch the show along with Wisconsin Badger fans. How cool was it the East-West Shrine game? The offensive MVP was from Iowa. The defensive MVP was from Wisconsin. Pretty darn cool. Soder says the UCLA guy sounds like he's a Ryan clone. He really does, Soder. Really does. It's a great comp there, man. Mark Gronowski, quarterback from Iowa. He was the East-West Shrine Bowl offensive MVP. Obviously, he was a senior. Performance, he earned offensive MVP honors. The former South Dakota State star looked poised in the pocket, showing the ability to make throws on the move and delivering a key block to spring Dean Connors for a touchdown. We got a quarterback out there blocking. My God. Injury history: suffered a major injury, knee injury, an ACL in the 2021 FCS Spring National Championship game, which sidelined him for the entire 2021 fall season. He also dealt with a minor knee tweak in September of 2025, but did not miss significant time. So you got to really do your due diligence, do the homework on the knee injury that occurred back there in 2021. But based off how he played in this game, I'd say he's all right. Now, he gets an 8-point bonus because he won the MVP award. We'll do the same thing with the Senior Bowl, okay? So he falls in the 160 spot. So he's 160th on our board. Why? PFF grades: 23, he was 4th at his position. 24, he was 49th at his position. 25, he was 59th at his position. The PFF big board had him at 293. The consensus big board had him at 311. We got an 8-point bonus as well. Guys, the grade we've got on him final is 135.2. What that's saying is he's worthy of the 135th pick. Although we've got him in the 160 spot, you'll see a differential the longer you get into the draft process and down the list here. But we've got him significantly higher than the consensus big board and the PFF big board. If he's available with the 7th round pick, and I know nobody's overly excited about drafting a quarterback, but if he's available with like a 6th or a 7th round pick and we got a 135.2 grade on him, you can see how that'd be a great value pick. Who knows? Who knows, right? And he's a guy who's had success. Obviously, when the lights came on at the East-West Shrine game, and I want to be very, very clear, East-West Shrine is nowhere near the Senior Bowl. It's kind of the minor league version of the Senior Bowl, if you will, right? But it still matters. So I want to be clear there. I put a lot more stock in the Senior Bowl than obviously I do in the Shrine Bowl. But nonetheless, look out for Mark Gronowski throughout the rest of the process, the pro days, the combine. He may be one that starts to rise on the boards a little bit. We'll see if consensus big board and them change their mind. If you're wondering, why do I have those numbers in early? That's why. What these guys will do on the consensus big boards and everybody doing their big boards, all of a sudden you'll get the all-star game and then you get the combine and they jump these guys up 100 spots. And it's like, I want to know how everybody felt about them at the end of the season. I don't want to know how they felt after all the hype train got going, right? I want to know, how did we feel? College football wrapped up, end of the season, fresh on everybody's mind. What did the tape show? What did they put out there during the college football season? And then we'll control the bonuses. We'll give bonuses for RAS and athletic build and profile, right? We'll give bonuses for the All-Star games. We'll give bonuses from Greg Cosell. Also, not in this board yet, we've got Daniel Jeremiah's top 50, but we don't have his entire list. We don't have Dane Brugler's entire list. We don't have all of Walter Football's entire list, which Walter Football is going to be replacing the 33rd team for us this year unless we decide to go a different route. Right now, that's the placeholder. That's going to adjust this list as well. So we get some late effect. But I wanted to make sure the consensus big board, the PFF big board, all that information went in as early as possible so it's not as polluted with the hype train that comes along later. And again, you'll get that hype train with your DJs, with your Dane Bruglers, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's how we roll there. Again, look for Mark Granowski to continue to rise. Now, here we go. Hopefully I don't butcher the name. I heard people say Rieger. I heard people say Rieger. I'm going to say Rieger here. You guys let me know if I got it wrong. Mason Rieger, edge defender out of Wisconsin. How do you pronounce it? Somebody help me in the chat so I don't screw it up anymore, okay? Edge defender out of Wisconsin. He was your defensive MVP. He was a senior as well. Performance, he was named the game's defensive MVP after a dominant 3-sack performance, all right? He's closing speed was the story of the night as he consistently beat tackles and forced a strip sack in the third quarter. Guys, 3 sacks during an All-Star game? Man. That's something, right? So it is Rieger. Thank you so much, Kyle. Appreciate you, buddy. That's what I wanted to say initially, and somebody said, no, it's Rieger. So appreciate you, man. So Mason Rieger here, 3 sacks on the day. Now, you hear that and go, oh, this dude might be a stud, right? Look at where he's on our board, though, where it's not like he's toward the top, right? We've got him sitting in the 210 spot, all right? He was the 89th at his position, edge defender in 23. We did not have a score for him in 24. I don't know if he was hurt that year or what. Actually, let's fall back. That's probably what we got right here. Injury history. Missed the entire 2024 season following the knee injury. All right. During his rehab in early 2025, he underwent a follow-up procedure to have a metal rod inserted into his shin to aid recovery before returning for the 25 season. So this dude's tougher than nails, but he's got a metal rod in his leg too. We got to be aware of that, right? That's something that's definitely not going to help his stock. But with Mason Rieger, you have got 89 in this position, no grade in 24 because of the knee injury, and then he got better in 25, ranking 64th at the edge position amongst all other college football players, and that includes over 400 teams, by the way, okay? 244th on the PFF big board. He was 329 on the consensus big board. He got an 8-point bonus for getting defensive MVP. So his grade comes at a 173.5. So he's worthy of the 173rd pick. However, he's sitting in the 210 spot on our big board. That's one to watch for. Late round guy. Now, do you need another edge defender? Well, if you move on from Rashawn Gary and you move on from Kingsley Egbare, I could justify making a pick like this late in the draft, right? I would be okay with that. Now, again, Mike Berry, you knucklehead. Again, the injury is going to matter, right? Like we got to know exactly, get your doctor's hands on that knee and see, all right, is that rod? What do we got here? Go through you may just kind of try to request his injury information, right? The surgery, how everything went, stuff like that. Mike Berry says, go Rusty Undercarriage. As you guys know, Rusty Undercarriage is on this list somewhere. I moved him around a little bit so you guys can go find him again. If you're wondering who Rusty Undercarriage is, he's a long snapper from Fart Box Technical College. So you guys can go find him here. So again, Mason Rieger in the 210 spot, Wisconsin guy. Love to see it. Next on the list, Eric Rivers, wide receiver / kick returner from Georgia Tech. Despite not being the largest receiver, Rivers was the most reliable target on the field. He showcased strong hands and blazer speed, particularly on the game-winning drive as a kick returner. Injury history: he missed the 22 season at Memphis due to a torn labrum in his shoulder. He also missed the 25 spring session at Georgia Tech while recovering from an injury to his other shoulder. So we got shoulder issues there, something to monitor, right? He's currently in the 150 spot on our PTA big board. Positional rankings: starting in 23, 6'19", 29, then drops back to 211. He's 128 on the PFF big board, 157 on the consensus big board. We got a 126.3 grade on him. He's sitting in the 150 spot for us there. All right. So again, that is Eric Rivers, wide receiver slash kick returner out of Georgia Tech. And then you got Trey Smack. We got our first kicker here. Chad Reuter said he made the play of the night for the specials with a 57-yard field goal that had plenty of distance and height. He also showed his athleticism by making a solo tackle on a kickoff return. Injury history: he missed the first half of his freshman season in 22 due to an undisclosed injury. When we put this information in, guys, going by offensive PFF grade, all right, for kickers, he was 32nd at his position. He's 290 on the consensus big board. The PFF big board did not have him on the board. We give him the 5-point bonus. His grade is a 156. All right. That puts him at 187 on our big board. This may end up being one of, if not the top kickers taken if one is drafted. Now, people hearing my voice, yeah, Joseph got all excited. He said, we didn't even have to super chat when we got kicker talk. Yes, sir. So here's the problem with this, guys. If I were to say, do you draft a kicker? There's going to be people go, you've lost your damn mind, right? But most of those are the same people that are upset when we have kickers miss kicks. When we have special teams gaps, specifically from the kicker position, it's like we don't want to allocate resources to fixing the position, but we want to complain and act like there's an easy fix to it, right? Now, let's see what the chat says. Jen says draft him already, right? Now, here's the problem, Jen. If we draft him, I'm trying to think, who was the guy that the 49ers drafted a few years ago, if you guys will remember. They drafted a kicker, and he fell flat on his face. Trying to think of who it was. Was it what Moody was it? What Bay? Anyway, you can swing and miss on these. Yeah, Moody, there it is. So I guess I did get it right. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you use a draft pick on one, it's not just so much, oh crap, we missed on him. Oh well, let's move on. But we know how these GMs are. If you draft one and he struggles in year one, well, maybe he'll put it together in year two. Maybe he'll put it together in year three. And we're going through this constant problem. Go get me a veteran kicker, the best on the market, right? Now, maybe that ends up being Brandon McManus. I know people hate to hear that. Guys, his first year in Green Bay, 95% field goal percentage. Last year, it dipped all the way down to 80, I think. You know, what are you going to get next year with McManus? If you move on from McManus, there's a realistic chance that McManus ends up going to another team and goes back to that 95%. And then what if we're stuck with a rookie that's struggling like Carlson, you know? So it's tough, man. I just want to point out that, yeah, he sits there in the 186 spot on or 187 spot on our board as it sits right now, he being Trey Smack out of Florida. But, man, those guys can struggle once they hit the league. And I think this is the last one. Yeah, last one here. Wesley Williams, edge defender from Duke. Performance, he proved his versatility by defending the run just as effectively as the pass. He thwarted a screen pass on the final play of the first quarter with his elite hustle. He earned multiple pressures from both the edge and interior positions. Kind of sound like a little Baron Sorrell kicking inside, right? Capped his night with a strip sack in the end zone that resulted in a touchdown. So had a pretty good night there. Injury history, no major football-related injuries reported during his time at Duke. He's in the 347 spot on our big board. Mainly because his PFF rankings at his position. The consensus big board had him at 260. We gave him the 5-point bonus. He has a 272 grade. So even though he's that far down, he is worthy of 272nd on our board in terms of the grade. Again, that is Wesley Williams, edge defender out of Duke. So those are your players that flashed according to Chad Reuter, and a little extra breakdown. Again, shout out to Reiger out of Wisconsin, obviously having a great game there at the edge spot, and then Granowski, quarterback out of Iowa. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. If you're watching this video back later, let us know in the comments. How do you feel about these players? Are they rising on boards with how they played at the Shrine Bowl? Is there somebody on that list you'd like to draft? Do you think that's realistic where we've got them ranked on our board? We want to hear from you. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so we see you in here in the future. All right, final segment, I guess you could say, topic here, guys. This is going to get interesting because I don't know. I haven't checked the poll question yet. I don't know how people were voting. I woke up this morning and had several comments of people saying Bill Belichick's a cheater. He doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. I feel like that's a slippery slope. I really do. We had a little bit of a conversation in our Patreon group this morning about it, and I just named off a few things that kind of came to mind in terms of people who have been accused of cheating in the past. Man, I feel like this is a slippery slippery slope, okay, that we're going down here in terms of if we just decide Bill Belichick doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame because of Deflategate, because of Spygate, all that stuff, right? But let's kind of get it kicked off where it all started. So Ari Miroff tweeted this out from the ESPN report. Bill Polian was a vocal figure in the Hall of Fame deliberations involving Bill Belichick, with Spygate and Deflategate coming up among voters during discussions. Per a voter, so we got a source that actually voted on this Bill Belichick into the Hall of Fame or not thing, which, by the way, if you haven't heard, first ballot Bill Belichick is not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is wild to think about. But again, we'll get to the poll question here in a second. Make sure you guys get your vote in, okay? The poll question is already up here on YouTube and X. So Bill Polian was a vocal figure, blah, 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 with the discussions. Per a voter who spoke anonymously, all right, Polian, the former Bills and Colts GM and longtime Patriots rival, told some voters he believed Belichick should, quote, wait a year, end of quote, as penance for Spygate. So this gets leaked out, and Ari Miroff, I think everybody on Twitter, for the most part, is making their opinion known. It seems like the large majority of the media people, like that are tweeting this stuff out, are like, what are we doing? They're totally against, like, Bill Belichick should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? And Ari had tweeted out before, this is a terrible look for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. No other way to say it. Now, I see people saying Roger Goodell should step in and this and that. Guys, understand the Pro Football Hall of Fame is separate from the NFL. Now, I'm sure the NFL helps fund and all that, and we know they're really the only pro league that's relevant right now. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they don't answer to Roger Goodell, right? They're their own entity. So just understand that. And I had to do a little research on that. I think it was last year to understand. Now, we got other people chiming in here. Diana Rossini tweeted out, as one current head coach put it, quote, if you can't take your personal emotion out of this, then you shouldn't be a voter. And then obviously Diana Rossini tweeted this out. At a time when football leans harder than ever into analytics, maybe it's time Hall of Fame voting does the same. If this were strictly about numbers, the conversation would be over. Bill Belichick won 6 Super Bowls. No one else has done that. Analytics would say he's an automatic entry, yet here we are. So again, it's all about emotion, right? That's essentially what we're coming down to is you've got people that don't like Bill Belichick and they do not think he should be in the Hall of Fame. That's essentially what we're talking about here, right? Now, with all the stuff that the alleged cheating, right? The Deflategate, the Spygate and everything. I've thrown this up, and these are just random thoughts that came to me this morning as I was actually one of them came, I think Chewy actually mentioned one as well. But the first thing that comes to mind for me with Deflategate, you guys remember when this happened? Aaron Rodgers was very vocal. Now, I want you to think about the slippery slope we're heading down here. Aaron Rodgers said, well, first of all, let's key in on Tom Brady. Does this mean Tom Brady doesn't get in first ballot? Because Bill Belichick had nothing to do with the deflated footballs. That was supposedly Tom Brady. Belichick didn't get suspended for that. Belichick knew nothing about the deflated footballs. It was Tom Brady and the trainer evidently having air taken out of the footballs. Now, this is still not a slam dunk, by the way. They were playing in a cold weather game. Balls, you could take those balls, put them outside for an hour, right? And then measure them, which they measured them at the end of the game, right? If it's a cold weather game, the ball is going to lose a little bit of air pressure. Now, to the point that they did, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, right? However, I don't even know if scientist would be the right term there. Aerologist. What would you call it, guys? Deflatologist. I don't know. Anyway, put that to the side. Belichick didn't have anything to do with deflating the footballs. If Tom Brady preferred the balls be less deflated, so here's what you got to, if we're doing this, guys, Tom Brady is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's what you're saying. That's a precedent you're setting, right? Now, here's the other thing. The years of Deflategate and the deflated football, let's throw those out the window. Okay, let's say you can't count those now then. He's still got 4 Super Bowls. What the hell are we doing? So this all comes back to, and this is just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right and anybody else is wrong, but this is coming back to now that personal vendetta that Diana Rossini was talking about here, right? So if you can't remove your emotions from the voting process, you know what this reminds me of? Remember Aaron Rodgers, the MVP year, when Hub Arkush allegedly said that he was not going to vote Aaron in because of his stance on vaccines. It's like, okay. And of course, Aaron, we need to get that soundbite of him saying he's an absolute bum, right? Now, Aaron went on to win the MVP anyway, but that really kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit with some of this voting. Like, what? You're going to say because he has a different stance on vaccination that should determine whether he should be the MVP or not, or shouldn't be the MVP, I should say? That's wild. That really was mind-boggling to me. Now, let's go back to the Deflategate. When this all came out with Deflategate, do you guys know what Aaron Rodgers said? I'm pausing for dramatic effect. Aaron Rodgers said, yes, I always have our guys overinflate the football and see if we can get it to pass by unnoticed, because I've got large hands, and the tighter the football, the tighter the spiral, you can throw the ball a lot better, right? And I see the super chats. Thank you, guys. We're going to hit them at the end here. Thank y'all so much. So does that mean Aaron Rodgers shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer? I'm going to take a sip here for just y'all think about that for a second. Aaron Rodgers basically said, I have our guys overinflate the footballs. I love that he had the huevos to come out in public and say that, kind of in defense of Tom Brady. Like, what are we doing here? Everybody has their preference with the footballs, right? Now, it becomes, well, the trainer took the balls into the bathroom out of camera shot, and they think they deflated them in there and this and that. If the Colts had won that game, this wouldn't even been talked about. This is sour apples to me. This is, I don't know, it's just wild. So anyway, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? If you're saying that Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer for that stuff, then you damn sure better not let Tom Brady get in first ballot. If you're saying that Bill Belichick's not a first ballot Hall of Famer because of this, I'll tell you another one. How about steroids? Anyone who's tested positive for steroids, do you now hold them out? Do you hold anyone on that team out? Do you have to remove the ring, the Lombardi trophy for those said teams if they have players that tested positive for performance enhancers at any point in their career? It's obvious they were cheating. It's a slippery slope. That's why I said that. So I just responded in the chat to, I think it was Josh Martin. Josh Martin disagreed. And listen, respect your opinion, Josh. This isn't a shot at you. I won't read your comment. I don't want it to come across like I'm dunking. But I just said you better be ready to keep a whole bunch of others out, including Green Bay Packers. As Chewy just stated, they cheated by getting their hands on the 49ers openers. You guys remember that? Somebody had left the openers, the first 15 or 20 plays that were scripted against the Niners, right? They had found it in the back area or whatever, locker room area of the 49ers facility. And whoever it was that found it took it to the coaches, and they used that as information. Isn't that cheating? If we're going to be all noble and nobody's cheating across the league, right? Nobody's cheating across the league, then shouldn't the Packers be penalized for that? Shouldn't they have had to go, oh, hey, guys, we stumbled onto your 15 openers. We, just so you know, we had them. You might want to change those. What are we doing here, right? I love that Chewy brought that up because Chewy was on that team. You know what I'm saying? So I a little bit of respect there for that. I talked about Aaron Rodgers. Here's the other thing too. Bill Polian, GM for the Colts, right? Do you guys know, and I said this in the chat, I said, ironically, the guy who led this charge against Belichick got caught popping in extra stadium noise. You guys remember that? Also, there were several other teams. I'll mention that in a second. But when it comes to, let's stick with Polian for a second. They basically got caught popping in extra noise into their stadium in Indianapolis. You've heard it over and over and over. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning joking about it. Peyton Manning has all but admitted that they did that, right? Because he laughs about it every time. That's against the rules as well. Does that mean that Peyton Manning's Super Bowl or Peyton Manning shouldn't have been voted in to the Hall of Fame? You see how there's only one guy kind of being penalized here? And it just so happens that one guy is hated by Bill Polian and Robert Kraft, which, by the way, Robert Kraft is up for Hall of Fame as well. If you guys haven't watched the documentary, I think it's called The Dynasty or whatever it is, go and watch it. And it's literally a hit piece by the Kraft family on Bill Belichick is what it is, to the point that the players hated it. The Patriot players, when they seen the final product, even people that were involved in it, I think it's called The Dynasty. Even the players that were involved in it were like, that, yeah, we didn't expect it to look like that. Because it was basically a hit piece out on it. So you've got Robert Kraft, who, by the way, Robert Kraft, he hasn't been perfect either. I think we would all agree. And didn't he benefit from the same championship? So why is he getting a pass but Bill Belichick isn't. Belichick wasn't involved in Deflategate. That was Tom Brady, right? So if he wasn't involved, then he's getting penalized for that. Robert Kraft wasn't involved either. I don't think his old ass, hobbled into the bathroom and let the air out of the balls, right? So does he get a pass? Why does he get a pass? Does that mean he can't get in now? You're seeing now. That's my stance. Again, that's how I feel. Now, I said in terms of Spygate, it says spyware, but I meant Spygate. There were a minimum of 4 other teams who were doing the same thing, watching and filming practice. Y'all know that? That was widely. I think the Bears were one. I want to say the Packers were one, but I could be wrong. I think the Packers, it was mentioned that they had people watching, in the facility watching. Look at training camp every year. Why aren't fans allowed to film practice, right? Because they don't want that footage getting out. But the reality is there are people from NFL teams that go around and watch training camp practice of these teams that have open practices. That happens. But yet, Belichick, he's the only one that's going to be penalized. I don't know. It's just wild. It's really, really weird, really strange. So I just said that's a big old can of worms that you're going to open up, right? Another one too, Al Davis. If you guys don't know this, the drainage at the old Coliseum that in Oakland, where the Raiders played back in the day, where they won all these championships, right? Where they were, I don't know how many they won, but they were a dominant team in the 70s. The drainage sucked at that stadium. So when it would rain, the field would get drenched, right? Al Davis would have the landscaping crew, right? The grounds crew or whatever, turn on the sprinklers the night before, flood the field so it's a sloppy mess to a certain extent where they knew they had to wear, taller, deeper cleats, deeper spikes, right? The Raiders did, and that would give them an advantage. Does that mean all the Raiders championships should be forfeited? Does that mean that Al Davis, John Madden, and all the Hall of Famers for the Raiders shouldn't have got in first ballot? Again, you got a different set of rules. The other, they would have the training staff put a cast. I can't remember the player's name, but I think there was multiple. There was definitely one that was known for it. He was a linebacker for the Raiders. They would have him put an extra hard cast on his arm so he could knock guys out. He could use it like he was like swinging a club. Like imagine you ever broke your arm and the cast you get. Imagine swinging that at players' helmets. They would do that to get a little bit of an advantage as well. So again, man, it's a slippery slope, and it's something that I probably sound like I'm a little more. What am I trying to say here? A little more passionate about this than I actually am. But it's mind-boggling though how people are just, nope, he's a cheater. Like he's the only one that cheated. So yeah. Again, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's been sports from day one. I mean, shout out to Beer Cheese Benny, who's got a NASCAR podcast now, and he's an avid, listener of Packernet podcast. Probably not this one as much, but he loves Packernet podcast. Calls in from time to time on there. It's called the Nassholes podcast, I think it is. So, back in the day, and I don't want to get too deep into this, so people are not tuning in to listen to NASCAR, but they used to put lead shot in the frame rails of the NASCAR cars so they would make weight, because you got to weigh the cars. And this is, we're trying to think, Mr. Boogity. What is his name? I can't believe it's escaping me right now. Waltrip, DW, Darrell Waltrip, called NASCAR Racing on Fox Forever. He was laughing about this on the Dale Jr. podcast, talking about this. And what they would do is they would fill lead shot into the frame rails of the car, and they would make weight. And then halfway through the race, he had a little lever that he would pull, and it would throw the lead shot out on the track. And now your car's lighter all of a sudden for the second half of the race. They used to do that all the time, right? That stuff goes on all throughout now. I mean, NASCAR has been, everybody's always trying to find an advantage there, right? Obviously, that was illegal. You're lying about the weight of the car. Does that mean anybody who ever did that in NASCAR shouldn't be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame? It's just, again, slippery slope, man. Slippery slope. That's just kind of a cross-reference. The same thing with steroids, right? You've banned a certain number of people from Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. You know who I would ban if it were me? I would ban anybody at the top of Major League Baseball that allowed that crap. That allowed that crap to happen, rather than just, we're just going to ban the players. Who was the commissioner at the time? Who were the managers of the teams? Who were overseeing this stuff and allowing it to happen? Then all of a sudden we're going to ban baseball players from the Hall of Fame. And don't get me started on Pete Rose. That is what it is. So anyway, it's a football podcast. I just think the parallels are really, really interesting there in that regard. Now let's go to the poll question. We asked everybody on X to vote over there. Looks like we got 70 votes on X. And then here in YouTube, we have 92 votes. So decent little sample size, almost to 100 on both of them. I'll put the X one up and we'll read. So we asked you, the fans, the listeners, the viewers. All right. Here is what we've got. Should Bill Belichick have been voted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? Once again, it was an extremely loud minority that was disagreeing that he should be in, because it's 95.7%, just jumped up to 95.8%. Thanks, Uncle Bill, who just voted on that. 95.8% yes, 4.2% no. So it's unanimous. Everybody thinks this is absolutely stupid that Bill Belichick didn't make it first ballot. Now let's go to the YouTube votes. 92 votes in here on YouTube. Same question. Should Bill Belichick have been voted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? 80% says yes. 20% says no. All right. So, man, if you took the average between the two, what would that put you? Settle you? Let's just call it 85%. 85% of our viewers think Bill Belichick should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Roughly 15% would say no if you took the two polls, obviously. So pretty wild, man. Pretty wild. Joseph in the chat says, yeah, I'm just going to pretend you said, where's it at? God, it's always so hard to find. Why is it so hard to find on here? It's been shuffled around so many times. Joseph said, I'm just going to pretend you said
65%.
65%. That's what we. So there you go. All right. I'm curious to know if you guys are watching this video back later. Let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the Bill Belichick situation? Should he be in? Should he not be in? I think everybody agrees he's going to get in. It's just, it was kind of weird that he didn't get on the first ballot. But let us know in the comments. What do you think about the Bill Belichick thing? Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any future live streams. All right, let's wrap the show up now with some super chats. Thank y'all so much for being patient. Looks like Mike Solder. Let's see, we got Mike Witt, Mike Z, and Solder in here. If you guys got any super chats, get them in now. We got to wrap up quick, okay? Thank y'all so much for the support. Mike Witt with the super says, my dream offseason, cut Gary, cut Jenkins, extend Watson. And I know it's not a need, but if the Vikings cut Aaron Jones, I'd love to see him on a one-year deal. Him with Jacobs would be awesome. I love the idea, Mike. I really do, man. I love Aaron Jones. That helmet right there is signed by Aaron Jones. I got all kinds of Aaron Jones memorabilia. I love Aaron Jones, one of my favorite Packers of all time. I think I wouldn't hate it. Let me put it that way. I would not hate that, Mike. I wouldn't. Don't take this the wrong way. But I don't think it's the right move. I personally think that, first of all, you got to see what you got Marshawn Lloyd if he stays healthy. If you're trying to sell me on a one-year minimal deal for Aaron Jones to come in and be the third running back, I don't hate that. I'd be okay with that. However, if you have a solid running back fall to you in the 4th or 5th round and you draft him and he goes into camp and you go, holy cow, this dude's a second coming of Amon Green, you don't want those progress stoppers on your roster, obviously. Now, it's highly unlikely you find a running back that effective, although Monunga, I don't know, you guys help me out in the chat. Put in the chat wherever Monunga was drafted at, but that's one that we had a little bit lower on our board and he ended up, boom, he popped, right? So the thought of taking snaps away from someone like that, as opposed to, having Aaron Jones in-house. I think it would be a no from me, but a minimal deal, and you could cut him if you have a better option. I'd be okay with that. It's just that feels a little dirty doing that. So maybe the Vikings cut Aaron Jones, they move on. We bring him in on a minimal deal, and then we'll make that decision in training camp. Maybe he would want to finish here. And who knows? Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle, and it is a great 1-2 punch. But I was pretty vocal last year, Mike, that in Minnesota, I felt like he was the second best running back on that team, personally. I didn't think he was the best. Now, we know he couldn't stay healthy, and that doesn't help, right? Mike with another super chat. Please don't want Belichick as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Oh, people, I'm sorry. People don't want Belichick as a first ballot Hall of Famer because he's a cheater, yet OJ is still in the Hall. LOL. Got it. Yeah, that's the thing, too, is like OJ, somebody posted a tweet saying, I'm glad they didn't let Belichick in because this is basically the Hall of Fame is something special. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And he said, we only let the upper, the high class people in. He was standing in front of OJ's bus. Obviously, he was being sarcastic. So, yeah, anytime someone is allegedly, right, involved with, and again, OJ was not proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for the actual murders, right? But he was found guilty for being responsible for the murders. And I think that gets overlooked a lot. If you guys dig into that, you know, I don't want this to turn into a O.J. Simpson conspiracy podcast here, but the facts of the case that don't get talked about by the mainstream media is really, really interesting. Like there was 2 different knife wounds. That was proven. A lot of people don't know that. There was, on Ron Goldman alone, there was wounds that came from 2 different knives. And the original coroner that did the autopsy on both Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, he was on the first day of whatever trial, his testimony or whatever, he said that, and they immediately removed him and he was removed from the case. So it's like, whoa. Isn't that important? Whether OJ was involved or not, that's kind of important that there was 2 different knives used, right? Don't they go completely against one person? So anyway, but I'm with you, man. You got people like that in the Hall of Fame, but Belichick can't get in because he filmed somebody's practice. Wild to think about. Mike Z with the super, appreciate you, buddy, says every team will and should take every opportunity to gain an advantage. It's lunacy that Bill Belichick is singled out. Every team is complicit, in my opinion. I agree, Mike, and I don't have a problem with teams trying to cheat. Hell, somebody pointed out, look what the Bears did to our bench warmers, right? Our bench heaters the other day. Are they going to get penalized for that? Well, no, they had nothing to do with it. Okay, gotcha. All right. Again, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Down here we say if you ain't rubbing, you ain't racing, right? When you catch them, penalize them. And they did. That's the wild thing, too. They penalized the Patriots, right, as an organization, and they penalized Tom Brady. I think he got suspended and fined. But now we're going to go back and penalize the coach who evidently didn't even know about that in particular. They were penalized for Spygate as well. So, you know, it's like you're penalizing them twice. Again, it's just a really bad look. I'm kind of glad it happened, to be honest with you, as weird as that sounds, because it shows how I don't know if corrupt's the right word, but just how bunch of a crybaby asses are running the Hall of Fame voting is what it is. It's like these guys cannot remove their emotions enough to make a vote on whether or not this guy should be in the Hall. John Madden said it best too. Coach Madden said the criteria of greatness is, can you tell the story without mentioning this person's name? If you can't tell the story of the topic without mentioning a person's name, then that's considered greatness, right? That's what I think of with the Hall of Fame. If you can't tell the story of the National Football League without mentioning this person's name, they should be in the Hall of Fame. How can you tell the story of the National Football League without the coach who's got the most Super Bowl wins? You know, that's wild. It's wild to think about. So anyway, appreciate you, Mike. H.E. Solder with the super chat says, be honest here. Bill was an ass to the media. Bingo. I know where you're going here. Payback is a biatch. He will get in next year. In a few years, no one will care about this. The no one will care about this, I disagree with Solder. Everything else I agree with. He will get in next year. The payback there with the media, and what he's referring to is Bill wasn't good with the media. And that got talked about on Jen Gave It Chewy this morning as well. And you know what, man? I love what the way they approached it was just like, it's not the media Hall of Fame. It's not the ass-kissing Hall of Fame. It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's the Hall of Fame that tells you these were the greatest to do it, right? And again, keep that same energy with other players and coaches. All I got to say. So I think you make great points there, Solder. Appreciate you, buddy. Mike Witt with the super chat. I still think it's basically absurd that Mike Holmgren is still not in the Hall yet, but yet Bill Cowher is in already. The NFL Hall of Fame is a joke. That's a weird, like, interesting dynamic too, right? And, you know, I think Mike Holmgren deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame before Bill Belichick? And now Bill Belichick gets pushed back a year, and it's like, it's just a weird dynamic. I personally don't like the whole waiting thing either. It's like, well, we can't put too many people in. Know what the criteria is, right? Know what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame. And everybody's got differing opinions on that. And that's why I like what Diana Rossini said. In a day of modern technology and analytics, you think we could just come up with, all right, remove the emotion of the vote and the media not liking Bill Belichick, not liking this person. Do they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame or not? You know? And again, I think O.J. Simpson deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. You know, previous conversation we just had maybe made it sound like I didn't think that. He deserves to be in the Hall. Have you guys watched O.J. Simpson when he was with Buffalo? I challenge everybody. Go watch the O.J. Simpson highlights. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for what he did playing in the National Football League. Everyone else can determine, what he did outside of football and whether he was guilty or not guilty or this or that. Yeah, that stuff should matter. That should determine whether you like him as a person and a player. But the thought that, even he maybe shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because of that, I don't know, man. And there's something that was said earlier on Jen Game as well, that the Major League Baseball Baseball Hall of Fame, right, in where's it at, Cooperstown, right? They have something special rules that you have to act a certain way. Like if you committed crimes, or you did this or that would keep you out. They said the Pro Football Hall of Fame does not have that, some kind of ethnics thing, right? So again, now Bill Cowher, I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, Mike. I don't think you're saying he shouldn't be in, but you're just saying, man, it's wild that he's in and Mike Holmgren's not in. And I can understand that. I get that, man. And I'd have to compare the resumes to form a strong opinion on either of those coaches. But Mike Witt with the super chat. My ultimate dream offseason would be having Micah ready for week 1, hopefully against the Bears on the first Monday night game of the year. That would be absolutely awesome, man. I think Micah will be ready week 1. That dude's a different breed. He's a different animal. You could just tell he's fired up to get back out there, and he's going to do everything in his power to be out there week 1. I would be very, very, very surprised if he's not out there week 1. And the main reason I believe that, forget that it's Micah for a second, but when he tore his ACL, it was significantly, what was it, like a month before Christian Watson tore his. Christian Watson came back November 1, right? So if it was 6 weeks before Christian Watson, I think he's got a better shot at being out there week 1. If he's not, I'm not going to panic. Get him back when he's ready. Don't get me wrong. Don't rush it back. But it's going to be hard for them to keep him off the field, I think. So appreciate the super chat. And again, thank everybody. Mike Solder, Mike Z. Appreciate y'all for the extra support there, man. That's what keeps the lights on around here on PTA. That and joining our Patreon group over at patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. Appreciate it. All the new, the new members over there and everybody being involved in the process. It's been an absolute blast creating that community with you guys and gals. So with that being said, I'm out of here. The voice is cracking. It's going. Thank y'all so much. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Is there something we should do different with the show? Is there something maybe you like a little more than the other? You guys and gals are absolutely awesome for the feedback. Again, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out in the future. We will be back later today if news breaks, and we're going to have more draft talk. We're going to have more roster talk, everything across the board. We got some prospect reports we need to put out there to everybody, so we'll get that squared away as well. So spin those laces, hit that like button. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
We out.
Bye, guys.